Senior living operators face a complex set of challenges. How do you stay ahead of the pack? Listen in to From Leads to Leases, a CCR Growth podcast for expert solutions that transform problems into opportunities. And maybe someday soon you'll partner with us to generate $1.5 million and up in additional revenue per community in just 12 months. So welcome back to From Leads to Leases, the podcast where we peel back the layers of senior living marketing and sales, offering you fresh insights, strategies, and stories from the heart of the industry. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, here to guide you through the evolving landscape of connecting communities with families and residents they serve. In today's episode, we're zeroing in on something that's become the cornerstone of modern marketing, personalization. But not just any personalization. We're talking about the kind that cuts through the digital divide, reaching out and touching the hearts and minds of prospects in meaningful, memorable ways. And to help us dive into this topic, we'll be chatting with Christie Freeze, the Regional Director of Senior Living Sales for SalesMail, a revolutionary platform that's changing the game for how senior living communities communicate with potential residents and their families. SalesMail empowers users to send personalized video messages, adding a layer of warmth, authenticity, and personal touch that text and emails alone simply can't convey. So whether you're looking to enhance your marketing strategies, seeking new ways to genuinely connect with your audience, or curious about the latest innovations shaping the future of senior living marketing, you're in the right place. So stay tuned as we explore the impact of humanizing personalization inside senior living sales with insights straight from the forefront of the industry. So welcome to the show, Christie, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much, Jerry, for hosting me and having me on the show. I'm super excited to have this conversation today.
Great. Let's get into it. So I first just want to talk about how you got started in the industry. So senior living, it's always so interesting to hear how people got going and made that connection.
I do love to hear people's origin stories for sure. And so mine is a little bit unique. I think all of ours is, but mine is unique in the sense that I started really early in my career. So I actually joined my first senior living community as a salesperson at 21. I had just turned 21. And I felt very fortunate to have a 3-person team. So I had a lady who was a little older than me and a man who was a little older than me. And they were so excited that I had just turned 21. They were like, let's teach this girl everything that we need her to know so that she'll do it the right way, right? And so I feel very fortunate to have them. I very much looked at them as mentors and guides in this. And they very much taught me the importance of listening, building relationships. And so I can see when I look back on my career, that was in 2011, I can see that has really been ingrained in how I show up in senior living, how I show up in my communications and my networking. And so fast forward, I worked as a sales director in all scopes of care. So the community that I'm referencing, it only had independent living. We were a buy-in community. We had a super small assisted living and skilled just like for our people. But primarily, it was a lifestyle choice. People moved there because they wanted to. And I thought,
are we talking CCRC or just, more or less?
Kind of, but more of like a retirement community. So more independent living focused. But that sparked my interest. I was like, but what about assisted living and skilled nursing and memory care and home health and hospice and home care and all the things? So I have since 2011 traveled down every scope of care in some capacity. And so I really wanted to understand how they talk to each other, how it works within the whole system, and just tried to become the very best resource as humanly possible so that if my community wasn't a good fit or my offering wasn't a good fit, I knew who was a good fit based on that listening that I learned initially in my career. So this is all I've ever done. I've continued to kind of grow and learn within the space and have loved it the whole time.
What a great skill, though, to have coming out of the gate, like being able to listen and have a conversation. It's like most people when I find in the business space, they're just kind of waiting for their chance to speak and they're not really listening to what the other person's saying. So the fact your entire career has just been you absorbing what somebody's saying and then being able to help them solve that problem, because that's ultimately like why we're all doing what we're doing, is we're helping people solve problems and making connections. So like, you can't do that if you're not really listening to what they're saying.
You
That's
cannot.
great.
And I think that as a typical salesperson is trained to almost have a talk track, like prepped and ready, right? Like,
Yeah.
regardless of what you, Jerry, tell me, here's the things I'm going to make sure that I hit. If none of those apply to you, then I'm going to look like a fool, and you're going to feel like, why are we even doing this? Why are we even having this interaction?
Yeah, this seems awkward.
Yeah, it does seem, and it will seem awkward.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in general, not just in senior living, it's like the greatest gift that we can give somebody to just, I always call it like holding space for someone, just holding some space for them to unpack, let it filter through you a little bit. And now let me provide the solutions that I know of. And if I don't know of them, let me find out for you. And we're still going to make sure that you are set up for success. It was my biggest pet peeve in senior living when, to your point, I've heard that you love the spa and you have a pet and you've maybe got these 3 things and we don't offer those. And I'm still adamant that you move into our community. That's not going to work for many reasons, but I'm also really passionate about shifting the perception of senior living.
Yeah.
So if the perception of a family who's already fearful and overwhelmed is that they're going to walk in and be bombarded and pushed, and then they're never going to want to go back and have that experience again. If you can say, actually, Jerry, there's a community right down the road that offers those things. I have a great contact for you. No, you're not making that sale, but I guarantee you that good karma is going to come back around in the form of referrals and just great customer service.
There's nothing worse than trying to push people into something that they're not going to be comfortable in. That's like being a used car salesman or something.
Yes.
And I think that's really dangerous in this industry too, because like you said, I mean, we're talking about, this is somebody's lifestyle choice for potentially their last move. I mean, if you look at like a CCRC, the average time people spend in a facility like that is 14 years. So like, they're selling their home to pay the entry fee to get in. And then and once they're there, they're there. So
they're there.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's taking, 6, 12, 18 months for these people to make decisions on whether or not to move in, because it is such a heavy choice.
It is. So, and I think about us, right? You and I sitting here right now. If somebody came to us and pushed us to sell our home that we love and move somewhere where they think we should be, how inclined do you think that we would be to do that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Not very.
No. And so it's just shifting it. I think more often than not, we, in all industries, but this one specifically, it's super important for us to humanize, empathize. I know we're going to talk more about that, but really putting ourselves in that person's shoes, because every situation is unique.
Yeah. So with this background in sales and senior living, how did you transition then into the role at SalesMail?
Yeah. So again, a little bit of a different situation. I actually used SalesMail as a sales director when I was opening a community. So it was 2019, and I had this awesome opportunity. It was on my bucket list because, I was just like super jazzed about all things senior living. And I thought, oh my gosh, to be in a sales trailer and have a building that's not yet built, to just kind of like go through that process. And once I got in that position, I was like, so how do we sell something that does not yet exist? And thankfully at the time, Heart Legacy, which is our parent company at SalesMail, was offering 2 solutions. They offered SalesMail, which is what I used as the sales director. And they also offered a video editing solution. So they still offer that. And that was just a portal that I had on site. The activities or dining or our nursing team would take pictures and upload it to this device called Remigo. And they would create these beautiful edited videos for families, for general marketing. But I was super intrigued by the personalized one-on-one, after spending 8 years at that time in senior living, really just honing my craft and knowing how important listening and humanizing and just being able to connect with people was. I was like, what? A tool that's going to allow me to just record a quick video, say what I need to say, and then move on. It just blew my mind. And so over the years since that time, I've stayed in touch with the team at Heart Legacy and SalesMail and joined the team officially at the top of the year, and so excited to be here.
Wow. That's great. That's a great transition, and
Yeah.
still doing what you love in the industry you love. So it's a
It
pivot,
literally
but
is like the
perfect.
best of both worlds. And
Yeah.
I love video and I love senior living. And so the fact that they are now together and my main focus of my world is just chef's kiss. I love it.
That's great. So I want just so our audience is clear, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between marketing and personalized marketing and why it's so important today, before shifting gears specifically to the senior living industry. So marketing is a broad blanket term. I mean, people confuse even marketing and advertising all the time. And what's the difference? And marketing to me is about the story. It's about telling the story of your brand and connecting authentically with your audience. You know that they can feel, they can understand. You know, just by looking and reading something. You know who you are, what you do. You know how you show up, all of those things kind of like capture your brand essence. And that's really the heart of marketing. Um, and then, so then you take the personalization piece on top of that. And then personalization in marketing is basically just a strategy where you're using data to target or retarget leads with a brand message that kind of like speaks directly to them. So, for example, you're shopping on Amazon and you see that, that awesome tablecloth that you really like, and then you go to three other websites and you see an ad for that same tablecloth you were just looking at on Amazon. You're like, wait a minute, how did that happen? That's
Marketing.
yeah, that's a version of personalization. And then and it's even down to like the personalization that happens on a one-on-one basis with, even a place like Starbucks now. Like you walk into a Starbucks and somebody, if they recognize you as a customer, they'll call you by name instead of just, saying, good day, sir,
For
ma'am. They'll
sure.
say, hey,
Yeah.
Jerry, welcome back or whatever. It's just, that's another tactic that brands are using to personalize.
And you
So
love going to those places because you're
yeah,
like, they recognize me. They know my
exactly.
name. Heck yeah, I'm
There,
going back there.
there was some data that recently came out that said that in today's market, like over 70% of people expect personalization in their marketing. And when they don't get it, 76% of people were frustrated with that. So it's almost gotten to the point where like not having personalization
Yeah.
is a really bad thing.
Personalization or bust is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in your perspective now, like being in this role and really like personalization's at the heart of what you do. I mean, what's your perspective on it in general terms?
Yeah. So I do think it's super important and there is a distinct difference. It also reminds me, I've been going to a lot of conferences lately where the topic is around AI and
Hmm.
how they are using AI to get some of that information that you're describing. So like
Yeah.
what is the interest of this prospect? And do they have like interests with somebody else? So yes, we're maybe personalizing that marketing, but we're also trying to build some type of relationship amongst those people. So I think that's a really interesting twist. I think that it's been really interesting to be in this industry for as long as I have and to see post COVID things hypercharge. Like I thought in 2019 that having a video tool was the coolest thing ever. And now, yes, it's still super cool, but now we have all of these additional resources and solutions. I think the AI is still fairly new in the process, but I
Hmm.
think that that's really something that's going to take off and allow us to really segment out how we personalize our marketing. Um, yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of the ramp up since COVID and 2020, I mean, do you feel like that's because more people are less likely to want an in-person experience, but are still now because of that, I guess maybe they're maybe expecting more personalization to make it feel more like they are in person? Is
I
there
think
is there
it's
something to
twofold.
that?
So I think it's twofold. I think the first part is that the consumer, the family, whether it's an adult daughter, a family member, the individual themselves, they are in the driver's seat more than ever before because of all the things we just talked about.
Right.
Because of just having ease of being able to go on, see a virtual tour, maybe talk to someone via a chat bot. There's a lot they can do before even getting to a person. And then the other part of that is I do think that there is some hesitation and resistance around being in person. But I also think that, I always dealt with experiences where there was multiple family members. And so how do we get all family members involved in this process together virtually and through these types of systems and platforms that allow us to get everyone on the same page, hearing the same information so that they can make the best decision for themselves or their family. So I think it's kind of twofold.
With your experience in senior living too, do you find that the family members tend to be roadblocks or more on the helpful side in terms of their loved one getting into a community that's right for them?
It depends. And I won't rabbit hole too much on this, but in 2020, I actually started my own consulting business called Care by Christie. It stands for Creating a Roadmap for Elder Care. And I created that because of this question. I think that family members would not be a roadblock if they were educated before they got to this conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think when, like, I've had sessions with families where there's 6, 7, 8 people on a Zoom call together, all getting the same information. It's not emotionally charged. It's not swaying one way or another. It's just, hey, do you know that this, and this even exists? Because more often than not, the answer is no. And so I think, like any other area in our lives, when we're not really confident with what options we have, we can tend to get a little prickly and we can tend to feel resistant. And yes, there are emotions that go into this. Yes, there's a lot of, burden or overwhelm or frustration by other family members. But I think when everyone's united, then they can move forward and not be as much of a roadblock, because then they're walking into a community with a general understanding. Now it's picking which community is the right fit for us, if at all, because now at least we know. Yeah. But yes, there have been I have experienced during my time, some family members that I'm like, hey, this feels like more of a you thing than your parent thing. So what's going on here? Yeah. And I think those are the tough conversations that folks need to be able to have.
Yeah, I find myself in that position. My parents are both in their mid 70s and like they're still going up and down 3 flights of stairs every day. And I'm just like, we live on opposite sides of the country, so I can't be there to help. And I'm just, I'm constantly thinking about like, well, when are they going to start thinking about, maybe this isn't the best option for me, or is it something where I'm going to have to be the person that steps in and has that conversation with them?
Yeah. And I think having neutral conversations, I always tell people not having an emotionally charged conversation and not doing it when a crisis happens. Let's say, heaven forbid, one of them falls down the stairs. That's not the time to have the conversation.
Yeah.
The time to have the conversation is literally what you just described to me. Hey guys, I've been thinking a lot about how many steps you're all navigating each and every day. Have you thought about if something were to happen and what that would look like as a next step? Because then it just opens up the dialogue. They could say, absolutely not, I don't even want to talk about this, but at least it opens up the dialogue.
If you can share some examples of how senior living communities have successfully implemented personalization strategies to connect more deeply with potential residents.
So I actually did gather just a couple of stats because I always love to share them.
Love data.
Of course, this is around personalized video, but I'm going to unpack that a little bit more because I don't think it's in the way that everyone like instantly thinks. How I used it, let's start there, is I used it in thanking an inbound lead. So if I got a lead from a third-party referral source, I know that they're getting lots of calls and emails from that third-party referral source. And so I would use that to my advantage. And I would say, hey, Jerry, I know you're probably being bombarded right now. I just want to let you know there's an email in your inbox with a quick intro video from me. Check it out when you get a chance. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to connecting with you. And without fail, I would get a response. Not always the response I wanted, right? But still a response.
A response is good.
Yeah. And so one of the stats that I have is from Julie Podowitz. She is now with Grow Your Occupancy, but this was when she was at Vitality. And it's super important to get these stats that people are actually tracking them. So you have to know what your inquiry to tour and your tour to move in was prior to adding a tool. Right. But once her and her team added SalesMail to that process, they saw an increase of 22% in inquiry to tour and an increase of 37% of tour to move in.
Wow.
And so my next best stop of using video was after a tour. I would say, thanks, Jerry, for coming in and touring today. It sounds like this, and this were really important to you. This is what next steps look like, and move them through the process. I am by no means saying that we should be using video at every single step of the process. Absolutely not. The gold standard is always in person. Next best is video. And then I think if you can learn their best method of communication, perhaps they're texters and they want to text. Great. Now when you communicate with them, you won't feel weird, they won't feel weird, and we can nurture through the process. And then another one that I had was from Blake Management, and they saw 12 move-ins in 1 month by using SalesMail diligently in that process. Mm-hmm. So I just think, I think in general, anytime you can hyper personalize your communications, you're going to see an increase in those conversion ratios that mean the most to you.
That data says a lot, though. That data says to me that because of the use of video personalization, you're generating a higher quality prospect, even at that like pre-tour stage. Getting them to say yes to a tour is really challenging. But like if you have a tool that's pushing them to get there faster, and then even the ones who are saying yes are even more likely to then move on to the next stage and actually go through the tour process and then move in. I mean, that's amazing. That's
I think
great.
A lot of it is just removing the mystery, right? I think that when somebody walks into a senior living community, they are so scared. They're overwhelmed. They're fearful, especially if it's their very first time. They don't know what to expect. So if they can walk in and recognize my face because they just saw it in their inbox and shared it with their entire family, because I can see all that too, I feel better knowing that they're walking in with a little bit more of their guard down. I know that we still have some things to overcome and we still have some tough conversations, but to be able to walk into a place you don't necessarily want to walk into sometimes and see someone you recognize, you're like, I want to know you. And then you can really build it from there.
Exactly. I think that's a good point, and something people need to keep in mind too, is that video or whatever the first thing you send, that first interaction you have is going to be that first impression that your community has. Yep. And that's going to stick with people the entire time through the process. So if you show up the same way consistently throughout the process, from the beginning, you're personalizing your content to their needs, to the tour, to the post tour, and even after they become residents, they're still getting, marketing messages and video messages and personalized things throughout their experience. They're going to feel so much more at home and so much more likely that, that they're not just a number in a system, right? Their opinions matter, what they value matters. And like, you've been paying attention that entire time.
And I know I've been talking a lot about video on the sales side of the world, but there are a ton of use cases and teams that are leveraging it within their dining department, within their activities department, within the clinical team, to be able to, to your point, to be able to nurture them through that process. Maybe it's just the clinical director sending an adult daughter a message saying, hey, your mom has had an awesome first week. This is some things that are going on. Maybe come visit her on this day because we've got this event going on. Like, how impactful would that be to get that from someone, especially if you as a daughter are a little unsure of what's going on because you're not there anymore, constantly around the clock. So there are, again, use cases for days. But
that's a great one though, because some of our clients, for example, they rely on social media pages as the bridge for communicating with the outside families, getting to see kind of snippets of what's going on in the community with their loved ones, but they're not seeing, that direct message from someone like a clinical director or executive director or activities director. Yeah. Just saying, hey, like, Rose has to look at Rose's painting. Look what she did. Like, isn't this amazing? Like, what a great time she had
thriving,
at this event.
She's settling in. She's found some new friends. Like, it just shows that you care. And now, especially as long as I've used video and this tool specifically, it is so easy to use that the time objection and excuse doesn't work. I hear a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Do you have time to write 4 paragraphs in an email? Because I am here to tell you that your 30-second video will capture all of that and be better for your consumer and better for you.
Yeah. I think too, video makes you a better communicator in general, because if you can speak if while on camera, like you become more confident as a salesperson too. So I think
Yeah.
as a sales tool, I think any video tool is a huge benefit.
Yes. Agreed fully.
Yeah. What would be some common obstacles senior living communities face when trying to personalize their marketing and sales efforts?
I think time, I think tech
Time.
confidence
Yeah.
is a big one. I've heard many times, and it's again an excuse or an obstacle that I love to overcome, because it's not always an age game. We have a lady, her name's Karen, and she has since recorded 394 SalesMail videos.
Wow.
And she's probably in her mid 70s. You would think to look at her and watch her videos that she's a resident. She's actually their business development manager. And so she's reaching out to skilled nursings. She's getting tons of referrals. She's doing stuff for Social Worker Week. And she was like, I'm not using it because I don't know how. And then her sister communities were seeing a ton of success. And she was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to my client success specialist and figure out how to make this happen. And she has been crushing it ever since. And I do understand that takes a little bit of self-responsibility and like gumption from Karen's side to be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But I think that anything that is new, we as humans have an instinct to be like, nah, I'm good. What I have is fine. I'm fine. Or the age-old saying of, well, we've always done it this way. Like, yes, and it's not but, it's and. You can do both. And video specifically is not replacing any of your other forms of communication. Still call, still text, still email, still do all of the things that you would normally do, but infuse some of those touch points with this really personalized way of communicating. But I would say time and tech confidence are probably the two biggest obstacles that I hear. And I just think that requires a little bit more hand holding, which is something our team does an incredible job at. Selfishly, I also really love to do that with people. Because I just love that in 15 minutes, I had a training this morning, 15 minutes is how long we need to get you logged in, recording, and sending. It's already branded for you. It's already ready to go. You just got to hit record, stop, send. So
I would think one of the objections or pushbacks would have something to do with the fact that like it's a video message and therefore it can't necessarily be like recorded in their CRM like a normal interaction would be. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so we have integrations with a ton of CRMs. If you're using it, we probably integrate with it. And if we don't, we can figure that out. So in SalesMail, you actually have a copy CRM code and you can paste that code anywhere. I still use that code to paste it into my email, and I blind carbon copy our CRM. So that every email I send, if I send you an email and you're in the CRM, it'll attach it to your account. We have an awesome welcome home integration that just got an upgrade. So you can still search for the prospect, but you can also search for the influencer. So perhaps it's the adult daughter or a niece or whoever, and you can do all of that from within SalesMail. So you can search for the prospect, the influencer, make them their quick video, send it, it's logged as an activity, and you move on to the next. But there is workflows that make that so easy. And I'm a big fan of hyper-personalizing, as we've talked about. But there are times where I've got an evergreen video, like my out of office always has a video in there. I know you're surprised. But like that's a video I can make one time and I can schedule it to go through Outlook or through Gmail. So there's some time hacks and some things that you can kind of work around as far as that. But we have great integrations with many, many CRMs specific to senior living.
That's great.
And,
that would be one of the biggest pushbacks, I would think, just because people get so embedded and entrenched in there. We've worked with, RealPage, You've Got Leads, Welcome Home, Further,
Sherpa, Align.
A lot of them, and basic senior living providers are trying to find an all-inclusive solution, but it's not always possible. And there's these other pieces and components that if they can find it and then find a way to integrate it into what they're already using, I think, they can create a really powerful system for their sales team.
It helps when they can all talk together. And I know I have this unique experience of being a sales director, but I'm here to tell you CRM tasks are like the actual death of me sometimes. And if if you're already thinking, I don't have time to do anything different or new or add anything to my process, the thought of making a video, sending it through email, pasting that email into your CRM, that's enough to make me want to be like, I'm out, you know? So
Yeah.
I get that. I get that side of it fully, which is why we make it so easy to record, log it, track it, be able to see your analytics, and be able to move on to the next person.
One of the statistics too that I read about senior living said it, and I know it's different for different types of living options, but
Sure.
it said it takes anywhere from 23 to 28 touch points from the sales team to get somebody from just a lead all the way to move in.
I believe that fully.
Yeah.
I once worked with a lady for 3.5 years, and she moved in 6 months after I left that community. And I was like, listen here. Her name was Nancy. And I said, listen here, Nancy, I'm coming back to meet you because we just worked together for 3.5 years. And by God, I'd like to put a real human. But yeah, it's a different sales process, right? And I think that there are people that reach out and they're ready to go. But I think that there are other people that also want to be sure that you are going to take good care of them, and they test that by how you communicate with them throughout the process. That's how they're getting a gauge on what it's going to be like to live there.
Yeah.
So we can tell them about it, or we could just show them by doing it and being who we say we're going to be.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a merging of two things at the same time. I think if you can automate as many of those touch points as possible, but also personalize as many of those touch points as possible,
yeah,
then I think you have the winning combination.
For sure. And to that, so I talked about that process when I was a sales director. I would reply to the inbound lead with a video. But that video wasn't always super hyper personalized. That video could say on the whiteboard, thank you for reaching out to XYZ community. Check out this video to learn more. I would say no one's name. I wouldn't say the day of the week. I could use that as like a rinse and repeat evergreen video. Mm-hmm. And then when Rose responds to me, I can put her name on the whiteboard and say, hi, Rose, I'm looking so forward to meeting you. This is where you're going to park when you get here. I'm going to be wearing a red sweater, standing by the front sign. So there's room for both. And I'm a sucker for super hyper personalized, but I also love me some evergreen videos that save me a lot of time.
Kind of a two-part question. So are there any specific technologies or tools that you believe are underutilized right now in the sector? And then kind of where do you see the industry going in the future in terms of personalization? Like we're here now, like what's coming?
Yeah. So the first question, I think that there is a huge need for what you described. It's like an all-in-one platform, right? Mm-hmm. I always think about the end user. I always think about the sales director on site.
Yeah.
But I also understand that we need all of these reportings and all of these things. But I think that if vendors and partners and suppliers collaborated even more, which is something I'm really focused on this year, is getting those partners together. Like, how do our systems talk to each other? And if they don't talk to each other, is there a way to make it super easy so that when we get to the end user, they have to do 1 or 2 clicks and we're out? So that I think is slowly but surely we're going to get there. And then I think that just throughout the future of senior living, I think it's going to become more and more that the consumer has the driver's seat. Like, I think that they have always, but I think that more and more and more, they're going to go to digital resources and they're going to have their conversations with the chatbot that pops up on your screen. And so if you can get to them in a creative, out of the box, different, unique way, you're going to cut through the clutter. Because if not, they could likely do the entire process without someone. And that makes me a little scared.
That is, yeah.
It makes me scared because I think that they're going to maybe have a different idea in their mind of what they're walking into. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to get there. And like I said at the beginning, they're going to have maybe a negative perception when they didn't need to.
I'm curious how that'll impact the industry as the number of senior, by the year 2030, they say the number of seniors looking for housing is supposed to double. So, that's I looked at the numbers, the census, and it's 22 million additional older adults 65 and up that are going to be in the population in the United States. And then, so out of those that are looking for housing, how is the industry going to really handle that? And
I
I
think the
really
housing
comes
needs to
down.
change.
Yeah.
I think it needs to, and in Indianapolis, which is where I moved from, I'm now in Tennessee, but I was in Indianapolis for the duration of my senior living sales career. There
Right.
are so many unique options there, whether it's a single, like a single family memory care neighborhood that they've just converted this house so that 8 residents live there, whether it's a campus where there's maybe 6 houses and they still offer skilled nursing, but in a really personalized home-like environment. I'm not sure if you've seen Living to 100 in the Blue Zones. It's on
Yeah.
Netflix.
I actually did just see that. Yeah.
I loved it so much, Jerry, that I watched it 3 separate times. I was like, wait, what are they doing there? I gotta know. But I just think that that's going to be the future for us. Maybe not to that extreme, but I think that the future for us is going to look like different options within senior living. I know there's new senior living communities being built all the time in the traditional independent assisted memory care capacities, but I think that's really going to be a shift that we see as we move on.
I think so too. I mean, one of the things from that documentary that I took away, they were saying how important community was to all of those different groups of people, how
Yep.
important community was, and then obviously their diet
Yeah.
was a big factor too. But another study that was just done, NIC just released by the Newark University of Chicago, they put out a study that basically said that that people who lived in senior housing had a higher life expectancy, and it was for multitude of factors, but I think a lot of it comes down to technology. Honestly, it comes down
Yeah.
to the tools that are at their disposal, and I think as senior living providers, they should be using those tools as well, technology, to help seniors understand, what their options are,
Yeah.
and give that information to them in as easy a digestible way as possible. So I think incorporating video into this whole process is so important, because people need to visually see. I need to see a space I'm going to be living in,
Same.
we're moving to a new home this month, for example. And the first thing we did was a virtual tour. And then once we did that, we were sold. We're like, okay, now let's go look at it in person. And if it looks in person like it did in the video, now we're talking. So
it's like layering and trust,
yeah.
Right? You're like, I don't know, I'm not going to waste my time and go look at that place if I don't even like the virtual tour. And then you see it and now you like it. And then if you have a great experience once you're there, it just is it's like the compound effect. You're like building blocks to get you to a really successful experience. And backing up just a second, I do think that that's super important for seniors to have access to this technology that they wouldn't normally have if they were home alone.
Exactly.
And even if it's not something that they want to embrace or use or, really experience on a regular basis, having access to it is what's important. Because if it's not today, maybe in a couple weeks or a couple months from now, having it right at your fingertips, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm interested in learning more about that. So I think as humans, no matter our age or status, I think that we are always wanting to learn and do better. And so having access to doing that is super important.
That's great. I agree. So I have two final questions for you. So for communities that are curious about incorporating video messaging like SalesMail, what would be the practical steps to getting started, and how do you typically facilitate that process?
Yeah. So first step, kind of to your virtual tour point, is to schedule a demo with us.
Yeah.
And so I love a demo opportunity. We have, a good back and forth of collaborating on seeing if this solution even makes sense. I feel about this how I felt about senior living. If this is not a good fit for you, you're not going to have it. If it is a good fit for you, and maybe just not today, then let's figure out the steps to what that, next process looks like. But we do host a partnership launch call. We take our client relationship super serious and consider them partners. And so I love the partnership launch call. That's kind of with leaders only, figuring out what this process looks like for training the team, what metrics we want to set for success. Nothing makes me more sad when someone says that wasn't successful. And I'm like, okay, But did we determine what success was? Because if not, we can't say that.
Right.
So we set those, those KPIs and understand where in the sales process it might be most beneficial. And then from there, we set up a training with the on-site teams. And our customer success is unlimited. So if, people want to do one-on-one trainings, if they want to do smaller sessions, we will accommodate whatever training schedule and flow works best for a community. And then that client success will stay with them throughout the duration of the account. One last fun fact about our client success team, the tenure on there is outstanding. Most of our folks have been there 4.5, 5 years and just have been able to build great relationships, with their clients and our partners. So
that says a lot. We typically, even with our own clients, it's like, 10 years, 12 years with the same agency. Like you know your clients, you know their needs, their mannerisms, how to have those meetings and how, and what's most important to them. So I think that's important. Yeah. So, and then lastly, are there any upcoming features or initiatives within SalesMail that senior living communities should be excited about?
Yeah, so there's a couple. One that's not brand new, but new-ish is the QR Pro. And so what QR Pro is, I'm sure everyone's familiar with QR codes, especially during COVID life, but our QR codes are dynamic. And so what that means is that you can swap out the destination of the QR code. It could be to a SalesMail, like my business card has a QR code that says, check out a quick video from me. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be any normal link. But you don't have to reprint the material. You can just swap out the destination. So that's really impactful for marketing teams. We're doing a lot of fun gamifying things. So like a leaderboard, knowing what your status is, if you're guru or pro, and just being able to see kind of how you stack up against others in your community, others in your company. Especially for sales folks, it's fun to have a little bit of competition and be like, I've made 4 more videos than you this week. So where you at?
Yeah, that is fun. That is fun. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we're nearing the end of our conversation, Christie, I want to make sure our listeners know how to keep this dialogue going with you. So could you share the best ways for people to connect with you, learn more about SalesMail, and perhaps tap into the powerful tools that we discussed today?
Absolutely. So I am a huge fan of LinkedIn. I would love, love, love to connect with folks on LinkedIn. Don't be shocked if you get a video from me thanking you for connecting with me there. Jerry knows, he experienced this. But I would love to connect with folks on LinkedIn, and then I can kind of, guide the conversation and figure out best next steps from there. So you can just find me on LinkedIn at Christie Freeze, and I look forward to connecting with anyone.
I love your Freeze Fridays too. Those are fun.
It's been so fun.
Yeah.
I'm going on a cruise next week, and so I evergreen videoed. I did 3 so that I could schedule them on LinkedIn so that nobody misses a Freestyle Friday.
That's excellent. Excellent. Okay. So as we wrap up today's conversation, again, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Christie Freeze, the Regional Director of Sales for SalesMail, for joining us and sharing her invaluable insights. Christie, your expertise has shed light on the transformative power of humanizing personalization in senior living marketing. And you've given us practical strategies and examples of how genuine connections can significantly enhance a community's outreach and impact. Again, we've managed to venture beyond the surface of senior living marketing, exploring not only the role of personalized video messaging as a tool to deepen relationships with potential residents and their families, but also the broader spectrum of innovations driving senior living forward. It's conversations like these that remind us of the importance of authenticity, compassion, and personal touch in every interaction with your community. So huge thanks to Christie for being part of this journey today, and to all of you for tuning in. The insights we've unpacked are not just food for thought, they're actionable strategies that can illuminate the path to more meaningful connections and thriving communities. Remember, in the rapidly evolving landscape of senior living, it's not just about reaching out, it's about reaching deep, making every connection count and every story resonate. So thank you for joining me on From Leads to Leases. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because every episode is an opportunity to inspire, innovate, and impact growth. And if you're a senior living provider looking to transform your marketing and sales approach and connect more meaningfully with your community, let's chat. Our expertise and with partners like Christie and SalesMail are your advantage in navigating the future of senior living marketing. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Explore more at ccrgrowth.com. At CCR Growth, we've developed the Senior Growth Innovation Suite to unlock an additional $1.5 million and up in revenue per senior living community within a year. We specialize in generating quality leads, expediting sales, and reducing acquisition costs. Let's connect soon.